May I have your attention, please?
Welcome to Real Gaijin, unveiling the real Japan, an American expat's inside look. Now it's time for another story from the Read My Lips series of podcasts. Summarized podcast. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm Mark Kennedy. I'm the host of the Real Gaijin AMA podcast and also the Substack called Real Gaijin, which is about showcasing foreigners in Japan and what it's like to live as a foreigner in Japan. Today, I'm very excited because we have someone that has quite a large following, a lot of clients in Japan. This is Menya Hinga. Menya, do you want to briefly say hello for a second?
Good morning, evening, afternoon to everyone. Thanks for joining.
Terrific. Very good. So Menya is a very accomplished person. He is the founder and CEO of MH, probably stands for Menya Hinga, Health
Correct.
Coaching. Good. So we're going to learn all about his journey. He's a personal trainer based in Japan, in Tokyo, but he's got a lot of other things in the works here. So we're going to learn all about it. Hopefully, you're going to come away with this with a better sense for how you can improve your own health on various levels. I'm interested in that since I'm probably a target client of his. All right. One more thing. This is open for chat. It's an AMA, Ask Me Anything. So if you have any questions, just put them in the chat and we'll be trying to monitor that and answer them as they come up. Also, we will be recording this and I'll give me about 24 hours, but I'll get it out within the next day or so. So, Menya, first of all, explain your name. I love it. It's like Kenya, but with an M. Menya,
With an
right?
M. Yeah, so my full name is Kamenya. It's Kamenya. That's actually
Oh,
what's written on this little band here. This is a really kind of traditional Kenyan bracelet. But the shortened version is Menya, which is if you cover the K and the A, it just becomes Menya. So that's where Menya comes from. The irony is that when the short story here. When I went to college is when the Menya like Kenya thing started. I was meeting all these new people. Menya is an odd name as opposed to John or Michael or something like that. So I just realized by saying Menya like Kenya with an M, it not only told them my name and gave them a riddle to remember it with, but it also told them a little bit about my background. So it worked really well. So it stuck. It's been 20 years and it's stuck. So
that's terrific. Hey, by the way, I'm glad you mentioned the college connection here because that's how the two of us actually
yes.
connected. Now, believe it or not, even though the two of us have now lived in Japan for a long time, we both went to college, a very small college, not even a
That's
university,
right.
in Maine, of all
Right.
places, which is a small state in the far northeast part of the United States. Now, Menu went to Colby, and I went to Bates. So these are rival schools, but we're we're in connection. Very good. All right. Well, so tell us. So you started life in Massachusetts, went to
Hmm.
Maine, and ended up in Japan. Maybe fill in the details, please.
So again, short story from the beginning with parents, mom and dad, born and raised in Kenya. They moved to the U.S. when they were in their early 20s. They met in the U.S. Had my brother, had me. I was born and raised in Medfield, Massachusetts, really small suburban town, 20 minutes outside of Boston, 25 maybe. Went through all my schooling there. Went to Colby up in Waterville, Maine. Bates is in Lewiston. Is that right?
That's right. Very good.
Yeah. So I obviously toured all the schools. Anyway, so went to Colby, graduated in 2009, and then worked in Boston
Ah,
briefly at this insurance firm for about 3 months, NPIUA.
oh,
I'll never forget that name. Basically I wanted to go into law. So one of my classmates at the time, senior year, kind of connected me to her dad. I ended up getting this gig in Boston for 3 months, thinking that I'd go to Japan for a year, come back, and then kind of continue on that path as I then took my LSAT, went to law school, did that whole thing. 16 years later, that has not
mm,
come to fruition.
what
So,
happened?
Japan happened. I came to. It's funny. I have one aunt who I think it was in the summer. I was telling her that I'm planning to go to Japan. That might have been spring. It's spring or summer. I told her that I'm planning to go to Japan for about 7 months to a year. And I remember this one aunt was saying, "No, no, 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 no. Kamenya, they call me my family because of Kamenya. Kamenya, you're going to be in Japan much longer than that." And I was saying to her, like, "There's no way I'm coming back. I'm going to law school. Like, I'm doing this whole thing." And she said, listen, enjoy your time there. We'll see you in a few years." That's what she said. And she's the only
She
person
was
who
right.
nailed it. She's spot on. I don't know. I've yet to ask her how she knew, but she was right. And so 16 years later, married, kids, business, the whole thing. Here we are.
Wow. Okay. Well, that was a very succinct summary of 16 years. That's
Yeah,
great.
I can get into that, but I
Uh,
mean, in a nutshell, that's why we're here.
so I have read a little bit on your website about how,
Mm.
I mean, you obviously are in great shape right now, but you weren't always that way. Is that more like me, probably?
No, so to be fair, I've always been athletic. Definitely. So when I was young, I was athletic. I've always loved push-ups, pull-ups, running, whatever. And my older brother was always, I mean, he's one older brother, so he was bigger than me, he was stronger than me. So
Ah,
when he was maybe a sophomore in high school, I want to say a junior in high school, and I'm maybe 14, he's maybe 17. I go to high school, we're in the same high school. He's playing football. I'm playing soccer, so I'm the skinny, smaller version of him. He's the much bigger, much stronger version of me. In fact, tangent here, but worth mentioning. When I was 14, and I think he was 16. No, I might have been 13 and he was 16. He was benching 225 pounds. I think as a single rep, which is great in general, even for a full grown adult. But he was 16, and so he was strong. And I remember making him this deal on paper that if I benched that same amount of weight by the time I was 16, I would give him $100. If I
cool.
did it, he would give me $100. If I didn't do it, I'd pay him. Long story short, I didn't even get close, which is to say, which is to say that he was just kind of naturally a lot stronger than I was. So he was
Mm.
definitely my original motivation for exercising.
Ah,
But again, I was athletic. I wouldn't call myself particularly fit, but definitely athletic. Get into college, ran track freshman year, stopped after that,
no.
kind of lifted here and there on my own, didn't take it seriously. Came to Japan after
Mm,
graduating, and at the time I'm maybe 22, 21, 20, maybe 22. And it was at that point when, within that first year to 2 years, my fitness dropped off more than it ever had in my life. And
mm,
ironically, Japan has great food. People walk a lot. There are a lot of factors that would seem to make staying fit in Japan quite easy. And the truth is, those were there. I just didn't really utilize them. At the time, I was teaching English my first year and 2 months in Japan. I didn't really like the role. I was enjoying myself doing other random things, but I wasn't really focused on anything. So I kind of just like let my, I don't know, exercise habits go to the wayside, and I was still going to the gym
mm,
maybe once or twice a week. It was all random, and ended up basically putting on more weight than I ever had in my life. So if you go to my website and you go to my about page, you'll see this, I don't know, kind of
mm.
chubby photo of me at the age of, I
Sort of.
think maybe, yeah, maybe 23 at the time.
Mm,
And I kind of hit that, having been net athletic and reasonably fit my whole life, I kind of hit this point where I was like, what am I doing?
mm,
And it was at that point, this is maybe 2000 and I want to say 11-ish, where I kind of decided that I need to change something. And so I did. And again, luckily for me, I had a bit of a background with exercise due to track and field and just being a net somewhat active person. But that's
mm.
when I really started to dive into the details with regard to nutrition and just figuring out macronutrients and, how much
Uh,
protein should I be ingesting. And if I might be mistaken in the dates here, but at that time, YouTube was not a thing in the way that it is now. There were some videos up, but if I'm not mistaken, I think YouTube maybe started in 2009 or something. And so, 2011, 12, it just wasn't what it is now. So the
mm,
resources that are available now on Instagram,
mm,
TikTok, YouTube were not there. So I was on, blogs and, different threads trying to read, fitness model posts about how they eat and this and that. I was just trying to figure it out by grabbing pieces from different places. And so that process took a while. I think, all things considered, I did get relatively fit relatively quickly, but it was really haphazard. And if I consider that was maybe 13, 14 years ago, um, like had I had guidance or the resources available that like they are today, it would have been significantly easier. And I think, again, long story short, that's a big part of the reason I do what I do. I was trying to find answers at a time when they just weren't as easily available as they are now. The irony is that now all of the answers are out there, but there are so many different answers
uh,
and so many of them are conflicting that
uh,
the number one kind of complaint I get from people who end up calling and talking to me about, hey, I need to fix something, there's just too much information. So now, my
mm,
time, my time. stretch, but 10, 15 years ago, finding information was more difficult. Now there is so much information that finding the right information is what's most difficult. And that's really what I help with.
Wow, okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. So
Mm.
how did you transition from that point where you're
Yep.
focusing on your own health to
Yep.
then deciding to form a business in Japan of all
Great,
places?
great point. Great point. It's 2000, I want to say 12 summer. No, maybe 12, 2012 late, maybe it's fall. And a friend of mine, and so again, maybe 2011, I'm in my first 2 years in Japan. I've got to get my life together, get quite fit. And then I realized like, oh, I kind of piece things together. Like I said, relatively quickly. Within a year, I went from like not being in good shape to being in pretty good shape. Not nearly as good shape as I am now, but pretty good shape. So I kind of at that point, this also, what is it? Is it Dunner-Kruger's effect? Here I am, 23, having gotten from, let's call it chubby to fit, thinking that I know everything. And looking back on what I do then, it's so funny to realize like I knew nothing, but I thought I knew a lot. So that's actually what led me to then offer services to a really close friend of mine who had never really been in good shape. He's a guy from Washington. Without getting into his details, very good friend of mine. He helped me build my first website. And I kind of just said to him, like, hey, like, would you be interested in going, like, do you want to go to the gym together? He's like, sure. Yeah. Like, would you want me to train you? It was one of those conversations. It was honestly just, yes, maybe, sure. What do you charge? I didn't have a business. I don't know. Like, what's reasonable? Let's do 3,000 yen. Cool. So like, I mean, this friend of mine was giving me 3,000 yen to go to the gym with him for an hour. And that led to the next guy and the next guy and then the next girl. And then it just kind of spread from there. And um, at a certain point within the first, I want to say year, I mean, it's very slow. I also didn't anticipate, I couldn't have anticipated staying here this long. So for me, I thought to myself, like, well, I don't want to teach. I already stopped teaching at that point. I'd love to do something I enjoy. I do enjoy this fitness thing. I've got a background kind of with athletics. Maybe I could turn this into something. And so I had come to Tokyo. I was in Nagoya when I first got here. I'd moved to Tokyo in 2011 early. So about a year and a half into being in Tokyo, I kind of began transitioning into this fitness space. This friend I mentioned, part of our agreement was I'll charge him very little and he'll help me build a website. So he helped me build my first terrible but like, you know, thing on the internet. And it just kind of grew from there. Yeah.
So, well, that's a classic story of an entrepreneur. Now, you also are at 23, 24.
Mm,
Obviously, not a lot of business experience there. How did you
zero.
actually Yeah, right, okay. Thank you for being honest. How did you then get help to form a company and establish
Yeah,
everything?
great question. Great question. So the longer story has maybe a lot of details that aren't so relevant, so I'll just skip to the part that's probably most relevant, which is that in maybe 2015-ish, I was I had just been awarded a new 1-year visa.
Mm,
And again, to save all the details and complication, at the beginning of this 1-year visa, I got the visa, and then I realized I wasn't going to stay at this place I was at that awarded me this visa. I just knew that was not going to happen. So I had a year to figure out what I was going to do. And ironically, this friend who I first trained actually came along and he was my primary reference for how to sponsor my own visa as a business manager. So I didn't know anything about it. I was thinking, am I going to do a specialist? Am I going to have to go back to teaching English, which I didn't want to do? I wasn't sure how I was going to, because business was actually going quite well on the PT side. So money was a non-issue, but I needed a visa. And
mm,
so I talked to his friend, and he recommended I do what he did, which is to get a business manager visa. The irony of this is that 10
yeah,
years later, which is now, that whole process is getting significantly more difficult. So I beat that by thankfully a decade. But if it was me now, like it just wouldn't be possible. I wouldn't have had the capital. There would have been no way.
ooh,
So now being October this year when things change. But
yeah,
anyway, so this friend of mine who was also again my first PT client, helping build my site, we had gotten closer. I had helped him quite a bit, so he kind of just shared with me all the details, and then I actually went and found it. I actually think I tried doing it on my own first. It was way too complex. Again, I had the funds, so I just paid an attorney to help me do it.
mhm,
Filled out
got it.
articles of incorporation, did this and that, put in the application, got my first 1-year business manager visa. And then with that, I had to have an office space and all these other things. So I had to kind of do it by the book, but it worked. And once you get it, it's not so hard to continue it. And getting it, I
Mm,
think, is quite difficult. and once you've got it, it's not so difficult to keep it going. So that took me through, and then again, in terms of visas, to keep this simple, that took me through to 2020 when I got married to my wife, Risa. And then
Ah,
at that point, it was just easier to switch over to a
right.
spousal. That's so
Yes.
yeah.
That is great, and now that
Mm.
wouldn't come out through your website, so thank you for sharing
That would
that
not. That would
personal
not.
information.
No
That's very
problem.
inspirational, though, for a lot of, would-be entrepreneurs who are not from Japan and have to deal
Correct.
with this issue. Yeah.
Correct.
Well, who knows what's gonna happen with that business manager visa? It's still
True.
speculation at this point,
True.
but,
True.
you are a living example of why we should keep the current
It can be
regulations the way
done.
they are. Yeah,
Yeah, and
exactly.
I think it's worth mentioning. 2 points. One is maybe what you just mentioned, but another is just that there are, and I'll keep this short, there are several ways to go about that process. Mine, I did the
Mhm.
business manager because my friend had done it. And he just told me, like, hey, do this. It's what I did, and it worked. It made sense for what I was doing. There are other ways to go about that. The way that I did it then, 10 years ago, just made sense given that I really wanted to grow out this business, this kind of PT
Mhm.
practice. Um, on the second side, and this is what you were just mentioning, right around that time, so 2016, I started, myself and two friends started doing these free workouts in a park,
Mm.
in UAV Park. And again, long story short here, three people turned into 10 people, turned into 20, 50, 100. Next thing we knew, we had numerous events each week. We were collaborating with Lululemon and Reebok and Oasis Gym and
Well,
Spartan and all these. It was really cool. So we ended up building out this thing, SOGO Fitness, which is actually even to this day a community. Fundamentally, it's not an NPO, it's not a Kabushi Gaisha, it's not a Godogashi. It's actually just a community of people who want to do something outside of clubbing, drinking, that whole thing. And all of us loved to party, and we did a lot of that, did a lot of that at that time. But we also wanted a place where we could just connect and not have to drink, not have to be surrounded by cigarette smoke, not have to have loud music blasting in our ears. We wanted, sunlight and nature and just people who wanted to just kind of, be with each other and enjoy each other's company while sweating together. So I think, again, this relates to your part two. I I wouldn't have had the opportunity to build Sogo with these friends and the community had I not been afforded the visa I was given and the ability to stay in the
uh,
country. And the truth is, not everyone necessarily does that. Of course, people don't necessarily go out and build communities of their own. But, and this is a kind of big picture concept I'd love listeners to be aware of.
yeah.
When you are in a place that doesn't have what it is maybe you're looking for, you can build it. And
Mm.
like looking back, I actually have just stepped back from directorship from Sogo Fitness. So I'm technically still a director, but I will be like leaving that role officially in the next maybe 2 or 3 months. And there are new directors who will just kind of keep it going. Then there are a whole bunch of leaders and supporters and all that. And it's such, I've been in it for 9 years since 2016, and this is, I'm stepping out. And um the number of lives that has positively impacted is tremendous. Like the number of, and not that this is the metric we count, but like the number of deeply meaningful platonic relationships as well
Mm.
as romantic relationships that have come out of just this thing are remarkable. And
Terrific.
it's not something that at all like I take credit for. Like I'm just a person who wanted to be at a place where we could have fun and do the fitness thing
Mm.
without, again, alcohol, the other. But I think it's that idea that connected with Maha and Mike, who are the two that we created this, the three of us created this thing. And we were all in the same place at the same time, right age, it was the right mix. It just timing was right.
Mhm.
And we ended up kind of building this thing that will live well beyond our time. And
Terrific.
that's really cool. That's really exciting. And I feel really blessed that I was living here because the truth is, if I was living in Massachusetts, that
Mm.
just wouldn't happen. I just can't. I can't see a way in which that would happen just due to the nature of life, like how I was raised. It's just a different thing. I
Mm.
shouldn't say it's impossible. And I think in an urban setting, like if I was living in downtown Boston, that kind of thing could happen. Running communities and all that are growing. It's becoming more of a thing in general. But there's something special about Tokyo, its proximity, the number of people who are just densely packed in here, the availability of just beautiful open parks like
Mm.
Yoyogi, that made that possible. So this is a long-winded way of saying for your part two, yeah, I feel like I've been able to contribute quite a bit living here in Japan in ways that
Yeah.
I don't know that I would have been able to even in my own country.
Well, that's wonderful, and it's a true story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Tell us more about MH Health Consulting. So what is it that you
Hmm.
do?
Good question. So I have to give the long story because it's relevant. So again, I want to say 2013 is when I'd really say I was doing the PT thing. 2011, I just started doing my own Get Fit thing. 2012, I was building this shoddy website. Again, thank you to my friend Mikey who helps me build it, but building this like shell of a thing. 2013 is when I think I started to kind of make money and realize like, oh, this can really be a thing now. So again, long story short, this is the first half, 2013 to 2019, I worked as a face-to-face traveling trainer. So I was meeting
Ooh.
clients in offices, parks, homes, apartment buildings, public gyms, private gyms, gyms I should be working out with clients in, gyms I was not supposed to working. I mean, everywhere. I was training people all over the place, rooftops, and I loved the work and I was helping a lot of people. But the truth is, the work that personal trainers do is primarily, obviously, face to face, and it's very focused on the fitness pillar. And fitness is extremely important. And most people who came to me at least thought that what they wanted help with was fitness,
Mm,
running, push ups, squats, planks, jump roping, burpees, that stuff. There's deep value in that pillar. But what I realized after years of doing this, it's probably 2017, 2018, when I really started to realize that what a lot of people needed help with was a lot of people needed help with more than just fitness. They need help with the other things, which are really, as I now do, they're food, fitness, sleep, and stress. So I kind of
ah,
added on these other pillars slowly to my practice, probably 2017, late 2018. By the time 2019 came, I realized that meeting people face to face to do the fitness thing just didn't give us sufficient time to tackle the
mm,
other things. So
mm,
2019, again, the shorter story here, I transitioned from my face-to-face, groups of people here, there's lots of solo clients all over, to my current online coaching capacity. And the primary reason is because I am better able to serve clients in this capacity than I ever was as a face-to-face personal trainer because we are able to tackle those big four. And that just wasn't possible face to face. So now, to kind of answer the question as to what I do, we focus on the big four: food, fitness, sleep, and stress. And anyone who comes to me can kind of be, we can kind of figure out quite quickly which of these is probably our primary, which is going to be our secondary, and then maybe what's our third tier, and then what's not so relevant. In most cases, there's one big factor. Like I really need to, resolve this. And so we spend a lot of time tackling that. But almost in all cases, in almost all cases, there's at least some kind of forward movement we were aiming to make from all four of those categories. And so the work I do now is one-on-one consults, primarily like this, or generally speaking on the phone, but sometimes via Zoom. And we just end up tackling the big four in whatever way is most relevant for that person based on their goal, their circumstances, their age, their industry, whether they travel or don't, whether they drink or
mm.
don't, all those factors. And what I found most remarkable, big picture, is that the work I do now is faster, more effective, and more lasting, so sustainable, than the work I ever did as a face-to-face personal trainer. And if that were not true, I honestly think I would have gone back to doing face-to-face PT if I had found this like less effective or less beneficial. But it has been just net all around better. And the growth potential on this side, in contrast to what I did in the past, is just so much greater, both for my clients, but also for me, because there's so much more to unpack and explore, especially in terms of psychology and habit formation and reformation and all that. It's really exciting because there's just so much to get into with people now. Whereas when we were face to face, it was just limited to the physical stuff. So yeah, I love the work I do now.
Whoa,
It's deeply enriching for I think both parties, and it just continues to grow.
that's terrific. Now, just listening to you, I can tell that you know a lot about all this. Well, tell us
Thanks.
about your credentials. I mean, why should I believe you? I mean, have
Yeah,
you studied
fair.
any of this?
Fair, fair, completely fair. So the certifications that are probably most relevant that I've gotten over time, my original ISSA, it's like it's almost laughable. It's this online test you take. It's an open book test. I took that in like 2012. That's not a thing, but that helped me get my footing. And just like I said earlier, with my whole
Mm,
was it Kruger's effect? I finished that
yeah,
test and I
you
was
did.
convinced that I knew everything. I was I was on top of it.
Of course.
Looking back, I didn't know anything. So I think there are probably a couple, yeah, it might be hard to number them, but I'll go through them. There are a couple things that I think really stand out in terms of my experience have been really helpful. So that's your first certification, doesn't even count. I spent about a year and a
Mm,
half working at a facility here in Tokyo. And at that facility, I learned
mm,
a tremendous amount, which is deeply valuable. I learned quite a bit about postural alignment. We had to do postural analyses for people when they came in, and figure out what's going on in terms of the spine and the hips, and is anything misaligned. And that was deeply helpful and enriching. I would have never explored that on my own. It would have not been relevant. As a result of that, we then got into a little bit into ergonomics, which is helpful, as you can imagine, for a lot of people I work with now, desk setups and all that. So we kind of roughly explored that. And then on the fitness side, we dove deep into progressions and regressions, all that. So the two certifications I got on the fitness side that are most relevant are probably NSCA-CPT, which is all over the place. They offer it in Japan, States, everywhere. Another one I did is called a CFSC, which is a Certified Functional Strength Coach. And that's offered by, I think it's called Mike Boyle's Strength and Conditioning.
ah,
Coincidentally, he's a guy who's based out of Massachusetts, and he works with top athletes, especially on the East Coast, but a lot of top collegiate athletes. And so he's got this massive now kind of worldwide network of affiliates, and he does this CFSC thing everywhere. They offer it in Japanese in Japan. They offer it in the US. I'm
mm,
sure it's all over Europe. That one was great. I think my original was study from a book, apply what I was doing at that facility I was working at, which was good. And then, I felt pretty confident with, okay, the basics. Take that a step further. I think it was 2016, got this CFSC certification in Rhode Island. I went back, I think it was over the summer. What did I do? I can't remember actually how this worked. I might have gone back for 2 weeks, and the thing was like a 3-day course. And so I went to Rhode Island, drove down, and did that. And that was fantastic because that was hands on. And in order to get your certification for this CFSC certification, you have to perform the movements versus like
mm,
an online, my NSCA CPT, you take a real test in a test taking center, so you have to actually pass the test, which is several notches higher than that online test I took years before that. But with this
yeah,
CFSC, you have to go in there and do this stuff. So you've got to show the single leg deadlift, you've got to show the this, that, and the other. And that was great. I actually really appreciated that. It was very hands on, and you straight up would not pass if you couldn't both do the movements but then also kind of coach them. So I came out of that facility experience, that CFSC experience, and then I felt quite confident that, okay, now ironically, coming out of that and knowing a lot more, I realized there was a lot more that I didn't know. And again, this is very
ah,
Dunning-Kruger's. When you don't know anything, you think you know everything, and the more you know, the more you don't know. So at that point, I realized there was a tremendous that I didn't know, but I felt like, okay, I feel okay enough to really continue to help people. So like I said, that took me to maybe 2015, 16. Basically, 2017, I ended up getting precision nutrition level 1
mm,
certified, which is a world-class nutrition coaching certification offered. At the time, it might have been newer. So when I did this, maybe 2017-ish, it was maybe newer at that time. It's become very popular. In fact, I see a lot of online coaches who are now PN certified. And the beauty of precision nutrition, to keep it simple, is when you come out of it, you are not a nutritionist. So I am not a certified nutritionist. The irony is that I work with a lot of people who have worked with nutritionists and still haven't quite figured the whole thing out. I think that's in large part because one, the way PN precision nutrition is designed is it's designed to give you a fundamental understanding of nutrition collectively, macronutrients, micronutrients, like supplements, etc. But also it's designed to make that applicable to working with people. Whereas I think, and again, I don't know this firsthand, and I don't mean to. This is not a nutritionist know a lot more than I do, I'm sure, about the details. But basically, I came out with this very functional way of working with people
mm,
on a say basic, but basically like a basic level, if you will. I think nutrition is going to deep depth far more than I probably ever have. But maybe there's a bit lost there because frankly, the average person may not need such great depth, especially if they're fundamentally healthy. Like if they don't have health issues, it's not we don't maybe have to go so deep. We need to focus on appropriate macronutrients, maybe some supplementing, and then we're going to be okay. There are people with all kinds of health concerns who might be better served by a nutritionist, but for your general population average person, my PN1 certification was great. So I have this fitness background, I get this PN1 certification. It's 2017, things are getting better and better. And as you can probably see, it's around that time when I'm realizing, okay, now that I'm spending so much time focusing on nutrition, this fitness thing is cool, but it's not enough. Like I know that
Mhm.
we could be doing so much more with nutrition. And then it was right around that time, I want to say 2018 maybe, when I really started to get involved with sleep. Like I really started
Mhm.
to unpack this whole sleep thing. And that's when all the pieces started to kind of naturally come together. So I don't remember what year in particular I read Matthew Walker's Why We Sleep, but that was probably the first book ever I read on sleep, like book that I just read committed to sleep, having done a bunch of kind of, kind of surface level research of my own. And yeah, so that in combination with just personal interest and realizing this is something I need to help people with kind of helped me naturally build out the big four that I talked about. Because then stress was immediately connected to sleep. So it went from, again, fitness focus to,
Mhm.
okay, this nutrition thing really does matter. I mean, I knew that already, but I didn't, get certified with anything. And then I've just dove hard into like I said, sleep, stress, psychology, James Clear's Atomic Habits to really unpack what is
Mhm.
habit formation, what is the habit loop, the power of habit. I think it's Charles Duhigg. So I'm a big reader. In fact, on my website I have a high performance habits or sorry, high performance reading list, which is like my top 10 recommended books to check out. If you go to menyahinga.com, I think it's slash reading list. I've got top 10, and then beneath that, I have another books. And, I'm very regularly recommending people I work with, either get summaries or actually just download and listen to or buy books to listen to kind of better understand the things that we're trying to tackle. So in a nutshell, your questions about certifications, you can probably see there's kind of been a progression of fitness to nutrition to sleep, etc. On top of that, I'm just a big I don't know, self learner, I guess. Like I love learning new things. And as I mentioned, I think exploring more than just fitness has allowed me to unpack a lot of deeply valuable things for me personally, but also for the clients I work with.
That's great, plus it's very practical. Hey, a minute ago, you mentioned that for the average person, maybe
Yep.
all of the information from a nutritionist might be overkill in some cases.
Yep.
I
Yep.
can definitely see that.
Yep.
Tell us about your clients. I mean, what are the demographics?
Yep.
I mean, do you focus on foreigners in Japan
Mm.
or non-foreigners? What's the story?
So my demographic has stayed the same the entire, and so it's changed kind of, but it's more or less stayed the same the entire time I've been in the fitness industry, which is now let's call it 13 some odd years. I essentially work with English speakers who are based here in Japan
Ah,
primarily. I've also worked
okay.
with lots of people from Australia, a number of people from Europe, and then people across the US. But in general, most of my clientele ends up being people that are based here in Japan. And then within
Mm,
that, largely in the Tokyo area, Tokyo, Yokohama, I don't know,
mm,
Kanagawa area. And then Japanese or foreign, I mean, probably 95% end up being not Japanese. I do get a number of Japanese people who work with me who speak basically fluent English. My Japanese is, and the reason is my Japanese is quite good, but as you can imagine, the level of detail I get into when I'm working with somebody one on one and we're diving
mm.
into like really detailed nutrition or psychology, I just can't do that, unfortunately, in
Yeah,
Japanese.
well,
So as tempted as I've been to kind of make that offer, I just don't think I'd be able to serve that clientele well enough. And so, yeah, part of what I want to do for sure is work with people who are fluent in Japanese to allow that demographic to open because there are significantly more Japanese people who could probably benefit from this kind of thing than there are foreigners. But yeah, my demographic is pretty set on English
okay.
speaking, namely non-Japanese. I'd say age demographic, it's probably 30 to 50 in general, men and
Oh,
women. I think I started with, yeah, my first maybe three clients were guys, and then I had a woman I worked with, and then another woman I worked with. My first couple, this is way back, and then I realized over the years, I've thought to myself, does it make sense to just work with men? And then I've realized, actually, no, because the reality is getting fit, it's certainly different in some ways for men and women and in chapters in life. So if you've got maybe a 30-year-old woman versus one who's 40 in her late 40s, they may be in different chapters in life, both, career wise, but also maybe even hormonally. Whereas men, like, there isn't such a big difference between maybe 30 and 50 in terms of what's going on in terms of the body. Um, but yeah, men and women, I'd say 30 to 50. I tend to work with professionals. So I don't so much work with like English teachers. I again in the past I did more of the random kind of I'll work with anyone. And over time I've found that the kind of person who seems to just gravitate most towards me and with whom we work best together are working professionals, whether working from home or in an office setting. The industry itself actually is irrelevant. I've worked with people in finance and recruiting and tech and I mean you name it. But generally, it's people who are working essentially white collar jobs who speak English, who live in Japan in general. And again, I've worked with people outside of Japan as well.
Got it. That's very clear. All right.
Mm,
Hey, how do you assess a new client? I mean, I
mm.
imagine you use many different tools.
Yes. Um, we'll start with the first conversation. So the first assessment, if you will, is a conversation. So we hop on a phone call and we just kind of talk through what's going on. Prior to that phone call, I have everyone I speak to, fill out a really basic questionnaire. The three, probably two most relevant questions are number one, in what way are you struggling most? Because it just helps me know off the bat, like, what are we talking about? What's going on? And then number two, equally important, what's your goal? What is it you want to do, based
Mm,
on this? And then there's a couple other questions. How important is this to you, et cetera? Anything else I should know? Any medical, da da da. But in
got
general,
it.
those first two are key. How are you actually struggling most? And then, like, what is it you want to do in a nutshell? And it forces people to come into the conversation having already thought about, okay, this is what I think I'm most challenged by. Oh, there's a third that's good. I'll mention in a second. This is where I'm struggling most. This is what my goals are. The third I should have mentioned earlier is what do you think is stopping you? I think the exact question is be
Ah,
100% honest. What do you think is preventing you from achieving goals? And that forces people to get really honest with themselves before we get in this call. By the time I get on the call with them, I'm kind of aware this is where I'm struggling. This is what I want to do. And, these are some of the excuses I know that I'm making. It makes it a bit simpler for us to then unpack from the get go. So yeah, they give me the long story. I tell them about me, coaching possibilities, etc. If it's a good fit, we go down that path, and we might work together for 2 months. It might be 10 months. It depends on what they need, what
ah,
their goal is, and what they're trying to do. But in general, most coaching programs end up being between 3 to 6 months. But I've worked with
ah.
people as short as 2 months and as long as, a year plus.
Oh, interesting. Hey, so what are some of the most common excuses for not being able to get to where
Good
they want to go?
question. Good question. I only have, I think I've got it's a multiple choice question in my little questionnaire, but it covers the big ones. The ones that I get most in terms of, oh, sorry, you asking how you struggle most or the excuses? The excuses,
Well,
right?
I'm asking for a
Oh,
friend.
the
No.
excuses. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, the biggest excuse is, oh, sorry, not the biggest excuse. The biggest reason, and honestly, in many cases, it's quite honest, which I deeply appreciate, is that you know people aren't accountable. A lot of people would kind of uh, self-assess as lazy. It is one of my maybe 9 or 10 multiple choice options, but a lot of the times, it's just the truth is the kind of people who end up contacting me in most cases, they're doing well in their careers. Like they've kind of figured out how to make money and take care of themselves, and in many cases, their families to an extent. But there just isn't at all the kind of balance they're looking for. And so when it
Ah,
comes to, what is my excuse? Why aren't I making this happen? It's not so much like I don't know what healthy food is, or I have no idea how to exercise, or I don't know how to sleep. Like everyone knows how to sleep. It's not that. It's more I haven't made this an actual priority, and I don't think I have the maybe capacity on my own to kick my own ass into gear. Like that's really what it is in a
yeah.
nutshell.
No,
And I think
mm,
in many cases that's why people find a trainer. They're like, "Hey, trainer, let's do this once a week or twice a week. Like, kick my butt, force me to do this stuff." That can be deeply helpful. I did a lot of that for years. That can be very helpful for a lot of people. But like I said, the truth is, for most people, they need more than that. They think that's what they need. Like, I need a kick in the pants to get myself to do this stuff. That's going to help, but it's really going to help you with maybe one of those things. And the other three, the let's call it the sleep, the stress, and the food, if you don't tackle those, it doesn't really come together as well as it could. So the biggest one by far is people just don't make it as great a priority in terms of building actual accountability, having there be, a real compelling reason to do it. And so when we get on the phone, in many cases, one of the questions I ask is also, how important is this to you? And it's, no wonder it's a 1 through 10 scale. Everyone is like 8 plus. It's 8, 9, or 10, pretty much everyone. Like this is a 10 and a half. So this is an 8. So by the time we get on the phone, these people, they've maybe tried some other things. They've tried the PT, maybe they've tried again, maybe they've tried working with a nutritionist, which helped in this way, but not in those other ways. The PT helped in this way, but not in those other ways. And so they're kind of having trouble putting the pieces together, and they just need someone who can help them put it all together. That's when we get in the phone call and we put together the holistic package.
Oh, I could certainly relate to that. That's great. Say, you mentioned before
Yeah,
nutrition, and especially, well, given the fact that you're mainly focused on non-Japanese people who happen to be residing in Japan, are there any factors about the food here in Japan that you take into account?
good
If so, what
question.
are they?
Good question. In the simplest answer to this is that generally speaking, people who move to Japan who are not Japanese like Japanese food. Seldom do I
Mm,
speak to somebody who moved to Japan who straight up does not like Japanese food. And by Japanese food, I mean the gamut of food. We're talking, this is everything from like ramen to sushi to yakitori, everything. And that being the case, Japanese food is very, very good. I've lived here a long time. I
mm,
love Japanese food. But coming into Japan with our Western eating habits, depending on where you come from, that can be problematic. You're used to big portions, lots of food all the time. We're Americans. We can relate to that. Coming to Japan and just having this delicious, what was once probably really exotic and is now kind of almost not normal, but regularly available food, it's very easy to overeat very quickly. And even with maybe walking more, especially if you live in Tokyo, you do quite a bit of walking. So even if you're walking more and you're a bit more active than maybe you were in your home country, there's just so much good food and entertainment available. Without even getting into the alcohol side of things, which is its own thing.
mm,
And then Japan's drinking culture. So it's I think the challenge more so than like a specific food, like shoyu being available or sushi. It's not so much that. It's just that people who move here tend to love the food. And once you move here and the food is available every single day, yeah, at
mm.
every convenience store on every corner, everywhere in the country, it becomes very easy to overeat. And that's often what ends up happening.
Well, I don't know anybody like that. Oh, boy.
We're all guilty. I mean, I did it when I first got here. Like it happens to all of us. Oh, Amazon package. Let me just tell them.
Very quickly, sure. Well,
Oh,
hello,
good.
everybody. Well, this is perfect. This is an Ask Me Anything live video. So please take advantage of this opportunity to go into the chat and put a question up here, and we'll try and keep track of that. I haven't been doing that, but I will try to look for one. We don't have
Question
any
though.
questions just yet,
Good
but
question.
please do that. Another question from me. What about you mentioned just briefly a minute ago about this, but during your initial assessment, how do you handle a specific medical issue? What of
Mm,
your clients might have?
mm, mm, mm. Actually, and thank you for reminding me. I didn't actually finish the answer to that. Let me finish the answer because I didn't finish the original answer when you asked me about assessments. I'll keep it really short and then I'll get to the medical side. So basically, the assessments. This Amazon guy still at my door, so apologies. But the assessment
That's
side, it's that first conversation, but then it's also our first actual session. So in our first session, I then give them a whole bunch of different things that I need, and this is like girth measurements. I need this measurement, this
ooh,
thing, this assessment, this mobility assessment, this movement assessment, etc. That's tied into our first session. That's kind of too much to do on the first call. So the first call ends up being like, let's get to know each other and let me understand what's going on. By the time we get into our first real coaching call, that's when I need to unpack a lot of other assessments. So we then get into a bunch of stuff.
okay, got it.
That was that.
Hey,
Sorry, that was
tell us
the end
about
of that first medical stuff, right?
yeah. Well, all right, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Medical side as well. So on the medical side, as part of that first questionnaire, the is there anything I should be aware of is actually the last anything else I should be aware of is the last question. It's generally in that kind of category when people end up saying something on the lines of, "Oh, by the way, I had this injury, da da da," or "I've got this nagging, etc.," or
Mhm.
"I'm told I have fatty liver," whatever those things are. And so, I'm not a medical professional in the sense that I'm not
Mm,
let's say, a doctor or a registered nurse or again, a nutritionist necessarily. So, to the capacity in which I can, we will address those things. For example, if somebody had a torn ACL in college and it's been this kind of nagging thing, that's relevant and we can kind of work around that together. If somebody has, a serious medical issue, like, there are a lot of them, but one example might be like Hashimoto's disease. Someone's got
mm,
Hashimoto's disease, and so like I'm not the one who's going to help them get the medicine necessary to handle that. But of course, they've got a general practitioner doctor who they work with, and then me being aware that Hashimoto's disease is part of what we're working with, I now
mm,
know okay, the thyroid is going to be something we need to navigate. So then it makes me aware of how we're going to go about our process. So
mm,
yeah, I think knowing people's basic medical history allows us to better program. But in terms of like really resolving the issues, generally speaking, I'll then either work with other professionals, medical professionals, health professionals,
mm.
or I'll at least receive information from ideally the client who's willing to share, and then we can navigate whatever that situation is. And I have been, I've worked with people who have all of the things you can imagine from, lower back pain, knee pain, to any kind of medical issue you could imagine, ranging from a thyroid that's active, fatty liver. I mean, all the things you can kind of imagine. I'm, I'm, yeah, having done it so long, I've kind of, I don't want to say I've seen it all, but I've seen a lot of things. And the truth is, like, this actually might be tied into what you're asking. The good news is almost, regardless of what kind of condition the person comes in with, we can find a way to work around it. And again, I think one of
Mm,
the more challenging when you're looking at somebody, for example, who wants to lose weight, if they've got hypothyroidism, it means their thyroid, producing way more than it should be. That makes weight loss difficult. And, it's still possible, hypothyroidism, it's still possible to work around that. But ideally, the person can medicate so that we can kind of resolve the thyroid issue itself, but then also the approach we take to, for example, food might be a bit different to the same person, same gender, who does not have that condition. And so,
yeah,
so by
okay.
knowing that, it allows us to then kind of work around it. A more simple one might be, and I'll relate this to Japan. Everyone in Japan goes in and does their yearly health analysis.
Mm,
And at the end of that health analysis, they get this, this breakdown. And in the case of having a serious issue, like again, fatty liver, or if somebody's like very obese, the doctor will tell them like, hey, you should probably eat better, exercise, etc. So they might come in and tell me, hey, it turns out I've got this condition or this kind of thing going on, this kind of thing going on, and then I kind of am aware, okay. Oh, easy. Actually, this is a very, very simple one that maybe can relate to some people. Somebody comes in and says, "Hey, I've got high blood pressure, and I'm taking statins to help kind of manage
mm,
the situation." And then, they come in and I say, "Great. Would you be interested in eventually getting to a point where you don't need to medicate
ah,
for your?" And of course, the guy or the woman,
yeah.
that would be wonderful. But then that becomes one of our metrics, not our metrics, but kind of our goals. We're going to get to this point where I've been medicating for this thing that's mainly a lifestyle issue. I'd love to get to a place where I don't have to medicate for it. And 9 times out of 10, we get to that place, and that ends up being a kind of huge win, really kind of measurable win for that person. So those
Mm,
kinds of things, we kind of, by knowing, we can then make that part of what we target. Another easy one, this relates to a lot of people, is, hey, I don't sleep very well, so I generally kind of take this sleep medication that I've been prescribed, or some combination of melatonin and other stuff. I say,
mm,
great, would it be helpful to you to eventually get to a point where you don't need to be taking sleep medication? And of course, the individual says, yeah, I love that, be great. I love sleep. So then part of our big practice becomes, okay, how do we better improve the sleep side of things to get this person to a place where they don't need sleep medication? And so those kinds of things, those are kind of more simple, but those kinds of
mm,
lifestyle related issues that can be resolved through our process are also, they're almost exciting for me because it becomes this really clear goal. And having worked with enough people and done enough times, I know we can do it. It's just a matter of, getting things going the right way. So yes,
that makes a lot of
medical issues
sense.
are relevant. Mm.
Say, you've now outlined a couple of success cases in general,
Yeah.
but tell us a few more
Sure.
situations where you've made a meaningful difference. I mean, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about those Rise app commercials where they show the
Yeah.
morbidly obese person suddenly becoming,
Yes.
well, not on the bed sudden, but
Yeah.
after a lot of work, becoming thinner. I mean, maybe that's not realistic, but tell us about
It's
a success story.
the rise up thing. Um, to, this might be an interesting maybe there's an interesting observation here. So in a nutshell, and again I want to be careful with how I say this, um, a lot of health and fitness programs, packages that are out there, unfortunately target the short term. And
Mm,
the reality is, for something like Rise Up, and again, I don't want to, I
mhm,
don't want to badmouth anything because I mean, it works and it works until it doesn't. It's probably the best way to put it. A lot of these programs, that's probably the best way to put it. A lot of these programs out there, they work until they don't, which is to say that they work while you're doing the thing, and then once you leave the thing, the program, the whatever, they end up falling apart. And like I said, I'll just speak to my own experience. I saw not a lot of that, but enough that it was a problem of that happened in my own practice when I was doing face-to-face PT with people. So there's actually one example, and I think he'd be okay with me sharing this because we've talked about it, and this is years ago. But I worked with this guy in the city. His name's Pat, and he was working in finance, and this is back in the mid 2010s. Um, he's one of the strongest individuals, guys I've ever worked with in my entire life. At the time, he would have been maybe in his mid 30s, just absolutely diesel human, like just beyond strong, but also carrying a lot of extra fat mass, a lot. And so, the long story short, we work together for a period of time. He loses a tremendous amount of weight. He competes in this white collar boxing event. He wins. He's in the best shape he's ever been in his adult life. We finished working together right around that time. Months later, he's more than halfway back up to the weight that we had worked on getting down. And so, like, I was shocked that it happened. Of all
mm,
people, I thought, "There's no way this guy Pat's going to go back." And we talked. I think it was a month later, and he had put on a whole bunch of weight. And in his case, it was because the goal we had set was this white collar boxing event. So it was this very clear deadline. I want to
mm,
get to this level of fitness, do this thing, and then I guess I'll figure it out. And so I learned firsthand that was one of the shortcomings of that kind of approach, where there's this really strict deadline, and then I guess we'll see what happens. And another common one, and this will relate to people, probably that are listening, is like weddings. Like, oh, I've got a wedding coming up, whether it's your own or I'm going on this vacation coming up. And so these kinds of deadlines, they can be valuable. I don't mean to discredit them as good deadlines. They can be great. You've got a vacation, great. We've got 2, 3, 4 months to get there. You've got a wedding coming up, great. We've got X amount of time to get there. In this case, the white collar boxing event. But you've got to look beyond that too. And I think in my earlier days as a trainer, I didn't really think to do that. And again, a lot of the programs, Rise Up, et cetera, I think they don't really take that into account. They kind of had this like, we're getting to this goal. You're going to take your after picture, compare it to your before picture. It's great. And then go figure it out on your own. I really disliked that. And seeing this happen to Pat, who's, at that time, he'd just become a good friend of mine, it felt like, I feel like I could be doing him a better service by tackling more. So a lot of the reason I do what I do now is because I don't just want to help people get into great shape so they can go on vacation or get married or do whatever they want to do for that short period. I want them to learn what it is they need to learn to be able to continue seeing results forever. So if you spend any time looking at the videos the clients have made or the testimonials they've written, it's pretty much all about that. Like I don't operate with a kind of short term, let's lose a lot of weight in a short period of time mentality because it works until it doesn't work. And then what's the point, right?
yeah.
Uh,
Ooh,
that's my kind
that's
of
a good example.
mm,
Hey, you made me think of something. Maybe in your 30 to 50-year-old sweet spot of clients,
yep,
you don't have
yep.
too many people on these drugs yet, but what's your view of the new GPL-1 drugs?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just my newsletter, I think it was last week, but even the week before, was all about that. So number one, they are in Japan. It is a thing. They've not made their way here. Um, I want to speak to them as kind of fairly as I can. Number one, they work. So just so we're clear, like, do they work or not? Is it hype or not? No, 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 no. They work. The short story, just like what I just said, they work,
Mm,
or they don't. Which is to say, they work until you're no longer taking the thing. and then you have to figure out things on your own anyways. So in the same way that
Mm.
like Risa can be deeply impactful and effective for people, it's only going to last if the individual actually builds the routines, habits, learns enough to then go off and do that on their own. GLP, these things can be great, whatever it is, Ozempic, etc. They can work extremely well, but the truth is, once you stop taking that medication, if you haven't figured out how to maintain those same eating patterns, exercise patterns, etc., you will gain some, if not all, of the weight back. So the short story, they work. I don't really have anything negative to say about them. In fact, I've worked with two clients, one of whom I worked with, and at a certain point we stopped working together. She'd come a long way, and I later learned that she then kind of went on down that path. I worked with another client who, during our time together, has tried. Oh, no, actually, two. One was years ago, but a client, in fact, I'm working with now, who's explored it, has gone on it, gone off it. Two clients now. That's so funny. One's actually based in Melbourne. The other one's here in Tokyo, who've gone off it, gone on it. Um, Again, they work until they don't. It's probably the best way to put it. So in terms
Mm.
of the simple question might be, hey Menya, do you recommend, like, I've struggled to lose weight for years. Do you recommend I go ahead and do this? It would be like asking me, do you recommend I do like the keto diet? I would say, look, the keto diet's gonna work while you do it. Like, I can pretty much guarantee it's going to work, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Just bear in mind, you're either gonna have to do the keto diet for the rest of your life, or you're gonna have to
Mm.
figure out the other stuff anyways. So if given the option between getting short-term results and then probably rebounding and being frustrated in the same place you're in now, or actually figuring it out, I would recommend you actually figure it out. That's my basic answer. Mm,
That's very honest.
mm,
Uh, just want to remind our listeners here to put a question, if you got one, in the chat, and we will try to keep track of that. I don't see any just yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing that. And then the other thing is, uh, oh, so we're almost out of time. I can't believe how
mm.
quickly this has gone. Uh, if you have somebody who's listening or listens to the recording that's interested in your services, I'm kind of guessing go to the website is the answer, but what should they do to get
Mm.
started?
Honestly, I'd say just go to the website and have a look. I think menyahinga.com, real straightforward. I'm sure you'll share details. What I mean by that is, um, and again, this is just total transparency. There are a lot of ways in which you can better your health and fitness. It could be working with me. It could be joining a local community thing. It could be joining a group
Mm.
class. It could be finding an exercise buddy with whom you walk. It could be getting a dog and walking the dog in the morning. There are lots of ways in which you can kind of be more active. The truth is, what it is I fundamentally help people do is create massive clarity around how to get from where they are to where they're trying to go. And that doesn't always even mean working with me. The irony is I've spoken with people, and in the first conversation, I've realized early on, like, this is not the kind of person that's going to benefit from working with me, but they'd be better
Mm.
served doing this kind of thing. And then I've just pointed in that direction. We get, 30 minutes in this call, and I'm like, look, I'm probably not your guy, but I'd actually strongly recommend you consider this thing. I think it might be what's best for you. And
Mm.
so the point is, there are a lot of ways to go about getting into better health and fitness. What I focus on is, again, massive clarity around what it is you actually should be doing, what's going to be best for you, and then carving out these kind of simplest way to get there that's going to last. So if you're interested in massive clarity around your goals and how to get there, and the kind of the easiest, most sustainable path to doing it, that's what I focus on.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then
that
again,
sounds very effective.
and then the way to get in touch, again, is probably my website's easiest. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so that's an easy way to kind of
Mm.
connect and communicate. I've got a YouTube channel I haven't posted in a while. I've got an Instagram account. I also have not been on there in a while. I've been pretty focused on LinkedIn and those connections. But
Mhm.
I have all of the social media platforms you can kind of imagine. And yeah, I mean, I'm a pretty approachable guy. So
It sounds
however,
like it. You don't have to convince us of that. So, what's next for MH Health Consulting?
yes, MH Health Coaching, same.
Coaching, sorry.
No, you're good. That's a great question. When I started it, so 2020, when I launched a new website, the word that comes to mind, it always comes to mind. It's laughable. This is not real, but I always think it reminds me of Pinky and the Brain. It's this old cartoon. Do you remember Pinky and the Brain? Pinky and the Brain is ringing bells. It's an
Well,
old cartoon. World domination is. I think of Pinky saying that. That's not the goal anymore. I think what's happened is the longer I've done this work. the more I've realized that what it is I think I'm uniquely able to help people do is figure this health and fitness thing out in Japan. Like the truth is, I think
Mm,
that's what I'm actually very uniquely able to do in a way that others just aren't. Which is to say that if you're living in Tokyo and you go online and you type in health coach or fitness coach or online coach, there are a lot of people doing this kind of work, whether they're based in
mm.
Australia, US, wherever. And I'm sure a lot of people are, offering great services and helping lots of people. The truth is, I am one of very, very, very few people doing this in the city who have been doing it as long as I have served as many people as I have, and have as many kind of success stories as I have. That doesn't make me better at all necessarily. It just means I've been doing it for a long time and I've helped a tremendous amount of people. I have a lot of experience doing it. So yeah, I think in terms of what comes next, I want to continue to lean into this because I love the work I do. I would love to see it expand more, even just domestically. But then, obviously, being an American and at some point in my life wanting to move back to the US, I'd like to find a way in which I can grow this out so that I'm able to serve people as well back home, US, as I do here, um, given the unique experiences that I've acquired over the 16 years of being, whenever we go back, almost let's say 2 decades of being in Japan. So whether that's related to, again, little things like the benefits of matcha or miso soup or things that, kind of Japan exports that are in fact very, very healthy, some might call superfoods, that could be better utilized by people in the West, whether that's US, Australia, etc. So yeah, I think
Like
growth. Like what's next? I would just say growth. I love this work. I love the one-on-one stuff. I love the corporate presentations I do. That stuff's also deeply enriching and fun. Um, yeah, I would say just growth.
All right. Well, I'm sure that's going to happen. In the remaining time, I'm well, we're actually out of time, but
Mm.
I have to ask you this question.
Yeah,
We understand you have 4 children.
we've got all the
Uh,
kids.
wow. How do you manage doing everything and
It's
raising 4 children?
it is number one, my wife is amazing. And I'm sure a lot of husbands say this, and I don't mean to compete here, but she's awesome. um, she is a champion in that number one, she has birthed 4 children, which is leagues beyond what I've had to contribute to the birth of our children. And she works full time. She runs a Pilates studio in Nakameguro. It's called Power Spot. She's got several
Wow.
staff members. I think it's 6 or 7 right now. She's been doing that for the past 3 years. She works tirelessly. She was up until 2 a.m. last night. I went to bed at around midnight because I was finishing editing something, which is actually rare for me. I'm usually on bed in time. She was in bed at 2 a.m. and she's been doing that for the past couple weeks just because they're in this kind of crunch period at the gym, the studio. Yeah, I have an amazing supportive partner. And like bear in mind, I do a lot of stuff. I don't mean to say she does everything. Like I wash all the dishes, I
Good.
mainly do her laundry, like I do tons of stuff at home and I deeply contribute. But I think having a supportive, positive, hardworking partner is a huge part of the reason I've been able to continue doing what I'm doing and to being able to grow it in the way that I have. If I had a partner who wasn't hardworking or wasn't supportive or
Mm.
wasn't inspiring, I would be in a very different situation. So a lot of this,
Right.
obviously, I have to give up to
Well,
support.
that's very encouraging. All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's end it there. That's terrific.
Mm,
Good message.
mm.
Many, it has been a pleasure to talk with you. And I know that our listeners that are live also enjoyed hearing what you had to say. Plus, we're going to make this recording available for everyone. So,
Awesome.
and lots of clips to come after that. Thank you. Uh, I wish you the best of luck in the future. I have a feeling it's going to be a very bright future for you.
Thank you, Mark. I really
Please
appreciate the time.
leave everyone with some parting thoughts.
Ooh. This is so cliche, but it's really true. If you're listening this far, like honestly, you can do it. Whatever the thing
Mm.
is you're aiming to do or really want to do, and again, this is massively cliche. I almost apologize in advance, but the truth
Mm.
is you really can. What's key is finding the right support, the right help, the right resources. It's very Tony Robbins to say this, but Your
Okay.
greatest resource will be your resourcefulness. So whether that's me, the internet, Mark, someone like the resources are out there. You just have to go out there and find it. And if you get the right resources, you can do anything. Same message I'd tell my kids, same message I'd tell friends, like anything is possible. You just got to be resourceful. So you can do it.
Wow, I'm inspired already. Okay, terrific. Men- Menu, thank you very much. Have a wonderful, great rest of the day, and thank
Thank
you
you.
for sharing all this valuable experience.
Likewise. Take care, guys. Mark, thank you very much.
Okay. Goodbye, everyone.
お疲れ様でした。
Thanks for watching and/or listening to another story from the Read My Lips series of podcasts on Real Gaijin. Tell us what you think, and be sure to tune in again next time.